The Wall Street Journal has just reported that the Doge team is looking at cutting or even completely abolishing federal bank regulators. One agency that is in their sights is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corp, or the FDIC. And the Wall Street Journal, which is not, the most liberal of outlets, had this to say about it. Bank executives are optimistic that Trump will ease a host of regulations on capital cushions and consumer protections, as well as scrutiny of consolidation in the industry. But FDIC deposit insurance is considered near sacred. Any move that threatened to undermine even the perception of deposit insurance could quickly ripple through banks and, in a crisis, might compound customer fears. Okay, so if you're not familiar with the FDIC, here is a quick overview of what it does. First, it insures bank deposits up to $250,000. It monitors banks for compliance with consumer protection regulations, and it resolves failed banks. Not perfect, but getting rid of it isn't advised by really anyone who doesn't have a vested interest in banking deregulation. Reportedly, Doge advisors have a few ideas for what to do with the FDIC. They could abolish it entirely, after which deposit insurance could be absorbed into the Treasury Department, a move that insiders say wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for the Treasury. Or they could leave the FDIC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, and the Federal Reserve intact, but strip away the regulatory powers of all but one agency, and the report did not specify which agency that would be. That second option is probably in consideration for the mere fact that congressional action would be required to just shut down the entire FDIC, and God forbid they go the more democratic route here. It's worth noting that the Doge team is also looking at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB, which Elon Musk has stated he believes should be abolished. The job of the CFPB is to promote consumers to protect consumers or anyone trying to borrow money or engage with financial services. For instance, it just announced a cap on banking overdraft fees, a rule that it says will save consumers $5 billion a year. And over the past 13 years, it has returned billions of dollars back to the public. But who needs them, right? Here is more from the Wall Street Journal. Representative Andy Barr, a Republican from Kentucky and Trump ally on the House Financial Services Committee, has backed the plan to eliminate or drastically alter the CFPB. And he said that he wants to get rid of what he calls one-size-fits-all regulation for banks. Barr has received millions of dollars in campaign donations from the financial sector and introduced many pieces of pro-industry legislation, including significant rollbacks of protections stemming from the 2008 financial crisis, according to the watchdog group accountable.us. There is plenty of misinformation being peddled right now in order to drive support away from the CFPB, notably on Joe Rogan's podcast. And there's plenty of reason for Elon Musk and other venture capitalist types to not like the CFPD. And basically, without the FDIC, if a bank fails, people who had money in that bank would just lose their money, unless Elon Musk and Ramaswamy come up with some other way to ensure consumer deposits. Currently, the FDIC, which was put in place during the Great Depression, operates independently. So the risk here is that without the FDIC, consumer confidence in the banking industry will fall, ultimately causing the banks to fail. So, Cenk, this is an awful lot of authority being given to a billionaire who the people have not elected. What do you think of this?
I think it's a terrible idea. So, some of you might know I suggested that Doge cut the Pentagon. Elon Musk, Donald Trump Jr. responded favorably to that. Then Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders jumped in and did a great job of saying, hey, if you want to cut the Pentagon, that makes sense. Let's go in that direction. Does that mean that we're all in favor of Doge no matter what they do? Of course not. Are we in favor of all the cuts? Of course not. So these would be among the most disastrous cuts. So cutting the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is one of the best regulators there is. And regulations just means laws, guys. When you take away regulations, you're taking away laws that protect the citizens, in this case from the bankers. And we once had a guest on here that was an expert on this and had written a book. It was such a great book. The best way to rob a bank is to run a bank, okay? And so we need cops on Wall Street. Taking those cops away is a terrible idea. And for every dollar we spend on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, it brings $20 back. And those $20, or I think they brought back at least 26 billion. The bankers admit, yes, we did something wrong, we did something fraudulent, yes, we stole from the consumers, etc., and we're now giving back some of that. So it's a terrific organization. Taking away that is basically defunding the police on Wall Street. But if there's anything worse than getting rid of the CFPB, it would be getting rid of FDIC. It would cause such a monumental run on banks that I'm not exaggerating when I say it would crater the entire global economy. If you thought that your money in the bank is not guaranteed anymore, there would be, again, the biggest financial panic we've ever seen. But these guys are not dumb. They're not going to do that. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard, right? But they're going to do something that I'm worried is more nefarious. So I'm going to get to that in a second. But guys, if you're a MAGA and you were worried and you wanted to drain the swamp and you're against corruption, what are we talking about here? So bank as he has read to you, but I'm going to emphasize it. Bank executives, not exactly the populist type, okay? Bank executives are optimistic that Trump will ease a host of regulations on capital cushions and consumer protections. So the bankers can't wait for this to happen so that you no longer have any protections. But the capital cushion part is the bigger part and a giant worry for me. I'm gonna come back to that in a second. And on Andy Barr, I'm gonna emphasize what she read again. Barr has received millions of dollars in campaign donations from the financial sector, and then wow, well, you look at that. It turns out he introduced many pieces of pro-industry legislation. Of course he did. It's open, brazen bribery and corruption. So, MAGA, you did all of this to put the bankers in charge because you're populist? Be careful, brothers and sisters. So, the two things that I'm most worried about that they might do. One, if they reduce the capital requirements, that's the one I said I was going to come back to. That is what kept us from crashing since 2008. Because in 2008 we crashed because they were allowed to do wild, off the books gambles, so that if they had $1, normally what you got to do is you got to have about $1 for every $8 in investments, bets, etc. that the banks do. That's a super rough rule, a lot of variation off of that. You can go even lower to be safer. But they were in the 1 to 100, 1 to 2,000. So when a bet goes wrong and you're leveraged that much, it creates a catastrophe because then they go bankrupt and the people who had to bet with them, they go bankrupt and it creates a domino effect, and that's what happened in 2008. If they release those capital, relieve those capital requirements with $1, by the way, your dollar, they'll be able to make $100 in bets. And I guarantee another crash if that happens. That is just a rock solid rule of capitalism that if you allow that kind of risk, that risk will blow up and it'll blow up on us. Okay, so don't say that you didn't see it coming. And finally on the FDIC, what I'm worried about is not that they're gonna take away the FDIC, because I can't imagine anybody would be that dumb. And the banks wouldn't want it either, right? No, my guess is that they're going to pretend to do that and they'll go, oh, well, let's compromise. Let's make sure the FDIC also covers crypto. Oh, so your money that you said you didn't need any government help on. Remember, the whole point of crypto was we don't need the government. Get the stinking government off of our money, right? Now all of a sudden, well, I don't know that this money's real, but it would be nice if I could turn my fake money into real money and I bring the FDIC to guarantee my money. Is it money? I thought you said you didn't need the government. So let's be principled here, right? All right, Brian, what do you think?
I mean, I own horses, and so I'll drop a sort of Dan Ratherism horse analogy. It'd be like taking the bit out of the mouth of a stallion and then trying to ride it. It would be a complete out of control experience for anyone on riding that horse. I mean, do you remember when the whole bundling of mortgages, how it just brought the entire housing economy to its knees? You're going to deregulate which parts of the banking economy. Is it just going to be home mortgages? It's going to be all kinds of lenders, not just the FDIC. I mean, this is so frightening. This sounds to me. It's not just about checking fees. And I mean, you said it. If this is populism, then I don't know where the rubber meets the road here. This isn't like Bernie Sanders populism where we're talking about banks. There's nothing in this that benefits consumers. So at some point, you do have to like have policy that benefits consumers if you're part of the MAGA, crusade. This is not the answer. This is just more enrichment of billionaires in the billionaire class. And I can't even for a minute think how a consumer benefits from any banking deregulation. I suppose we could have a 92nd Street Y symposium on it, but I can't think of one thing that benefits your average consumer by deregulating banks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Doge. And Cenk, I think you touched on this. I'm not against government running more efficiently. I don't think anyone would reasonably be against a more efficiently run government. I just don't trust these particular people to be the ones to do it. We didn't vote for them. We all saw what he did with Twitter. And the argument that a lot of pro Elon people love to make is that even with all of those layoffs that he did, X is still up and running. And you probably haven't noticed any difference in using it on your day to day. But Elon Musk is not the government. He doesn't have to concern himself with things like the national unemployment rate. And he doesn't have to worry about things like what happens to all these people after you lay them off, after you eliminate all these jobs without giving them something else in return. So he's just there to make cuts, and he's not there to build anything. Maybe at one point in his career, he was trying to build, but right now he's just trying to cut. And all these things that he's doing, again, as an unelected official, is going to have massive repercussions, not just in this country, but potentially around the world. So it's something to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, this could be an epic disaster. And so look, for the MAGA folks, you were wary of your leaders and you got rid of people like Mitch McConnell and the establishment Republicans. And I've said many, many times that I respect that, right? We're wary of our leaders, Biden, Pelosi, Kamala Harris. I've challenged all of them. Don't let your guard down and all of a sudden be like, oh, our leaders are angels. Elon Musk gave $250 million to Donald Trump's campaign, but I bet he doesn't want anything back. I'll just trust him. Oh, Donald Trump, he has no history of being interested in money. I'll just trust him. No, you have to hold him accountable. If you don't, this could turn into a gigantic problem. So if they deregulate to this level and they let the banks run wild, it is the least populist thing you could do and will definitely cause a crash. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.